Hi, Joe.
Hi, Jason.
Thanks for having another evolutionary conversation with me. Uh,
You're welcome.
it's good to see you. And thanks for having another. Could you put headphones in? I'm hearing a echo.
Yeah, that's all right. It was from my phone. I was
Okay,
sharing.
got
That's fine. Okay, cool. Let's go. Let's start again.
it. And
Yeah, yeah.
so we're here for, just to everybody, we're here for two reasons. And this is true with any time I give a conversation or have a talk with somebody or solo. But in the pandemic, I lost this form. So, we're here for two reasons. One is to give you distinctions and insights or practices that will transform your life, whether we ever have contact or not. And the second is we're obviously here to also market our services, and we'll talk about that at the end. Both of us will. But so, Joe, could you just say a little bit about what inspired this? Because you reached out to me, and I love the topic. But could you say a little bit about what was going on and what you experienced and like that?
Absolutely. So, well, first of all, thank you for agreeing to this conversation because I think it's going to be
Yeah.
really enriching. What inspired the conversation is I've been working with a group of women. So for 7 months, we're working through the 7 chakras, the 7 energy centers. So we've started at the root, which is all about our deepest fears, our fears around safety and support. And that brought up loads of stuff for women, but stuff they were willing to look at and work through, and they're still working through that. And then this month we have moved into the sacral chakra, which is all about our sexuality, our sensuality, our relationship with ourselves and others, our creativity, our self-expression. And this has gone to another level. I mean, so much resistance has come up from the women, from a lot of the women. And it's a problem. A few of them have spoken up about being sexually abused as children, and they've kept that within them. They've held that within their bodies for 40,
Sure.
50 years. This is
Yeah.
coming up, and there's so much wounding coming to light now. I feel it's really important that we address this, not just to share how common this is or what a problem it is, but also what can we start to do about this. And I felt that you were the ideal person to have this conversation with because you are so open and not afraid to go to any topic, really. I mean, I'm not afraid of depth, but you take it to the next
It's
level.
true.
So,
It's true.
yeah. So thank you. So that's what inspired the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So this, I think I mentioned to you, and I've said it a few times, in terms of, and we can unpack everything you just said, and that's what we'll be doing over the course of this conversation. But I remember when I was learning how to resolve phobias and traumas, and also when I was learning how to speak publicly 25 years ago, which I was terrified to do. I ran across a book on phobias, and the top 3 phobias are public speaking is number 1, death is number 2, and spiders are number 3. And I thought it was hilarious that more people fear death than public speaking. But what I also wondered recently is, is intimacy? Should intimacy be on that list? Do people fear intimacy or depth? We could say depth is the same thing as intimacy. To really be fully seen. And I think that there's so many people out there who, because they don't fully love themselves and don't fully accept themselves, they think other people are going to have the same judgments as they are about themselves, and so they don't share their desires, they don't share their fears, they don't share their they don't share themselves fully. And so there's just a fundamental lack of intimacy and depth. And sometimes that's self-acceptance. Sometimes it's, like you talked about, trauma. But, holding it in your body for that long, I mean, first of all, it does everybody a service to resolve it. And sometimes there are like people are afraid, like, there's often a generalization based on an experience that then travels through your life. It's like you have a really bad breakup and people are like, oh, well, you know, women are, or men are, or people are, or relationships are just, and they make these generalized global beliefs, and then their confirmation bias kicks in. They start looking for evidence of that, and they miss out on the beauty of love and pleasure, and the generalizations are never going to be accurate at the individual level. So they look for little pieces of evidence to stay safe, and I understand why, but
Mm.
there's the antidote to all of that. The antidote is self acceptance and having the self awareness, the metacognition, to be able to realize that not all relationships are like that, or maybe that one was, but to not overly generalize to keep ourselves safe,
Mm.
perceived safety.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, this is such a huge topic. It's almost difficult for me to know where to start with answering or
Yeah,
responding to you there. But
yeah.
intimacy really is the most important aspect of any feel good relationship, whether that's
Hmm.
partnership or friendship or family or any kind of relationship. And intimacy involves and requires closeness, and closeness requires vulnerability. And if, which many of us have, most of us have at some point, our feelings, our desires are invalid. We have to start unpacking this now, because we all crave intimacy. We all need it. And probably because we need it so much is why we also fear it. But absolutely, it's this mask that we wear when we don't accept ourselves that prevents so much love from being exchanged. It means that we can't receive love that's given, and love can be given in so many different ways. It can be given in as affection or as a gift or a compliment in so many different ways. And if we recoil or deflect or reject it ourselves that are missing out, we're actually hurting the other person as well. We're stopping that flow of love, which is our life force. So this is
Yeah.
such an important topic to
Yeah.
unpack.
I think along, in terms of self-esteem, those two components of knowing that you're competent to handle whatever life throws at you. That's one
Mhm.
component, sort of results based and sort of, knowledge based, like I have historical references.
Mhm.
But the other component is feeling that you're worthy of receiving that full self-acceptance. And that's an internal, no one can convince you of that. You can't, no matter how much somebody says they love you, if you don't feel like you deserve it, you're not going to. And I think part of that, I know personally, and I'm going to presuppose first of all, like what I'm about to share is really makes sense for two people who are in love. Not like if somebody gives you a gift, and they're madly in love with you, and you're not in love with them, it might be the appropriate thing to not accept that gift. Like it might be, it might actually be appropriate to, if you don't feel the same way. And really, if you don't feel the same way about them, and that becomes clear, you really shouldn't be dating them. I don't think, but
Mm.
that's
I
my
totally agree.
moral. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
way I view the world, right? But presupposing you're both in love,
Mhm.
uh, I have experienced, somebody who I was like the love of my life. I thought, although I think I talked to my first love, and she's like, "You say that about every." I was like, it's more intense, it's more intimate. Each one is, I've had about 4 or 5 major relationships, and the most frustrating one was, we both said we were each other's, like we were life partners. But her capacity to receive, and she knew it. She called it, a havingness. Like she's like, I don't know that I can have, like I don't that I can have all. Like it was surprising to her that she could have so much love. That I just loved her so much. I wanted to do things or have experiences or let her have her desires or and without any without any transactional experience or
Mm.
any strings attached or any
Yeah.
that it really was just from being effulsive about my love for her, being full of love for her.
Mm.
Her inability to receive that was a constant point of frustration for me. And of course, we can only give to somebody to the capacity that they can receive.
Mm.
But I just saw so much in the way of us having the kind of love that we, both said that we wanted. And after a few years of that, I simply and other, dysfunctional things in the relationship, I simply gave up. After trying to burn through those battlements around
Mm.
her fear of intimacy and her growing capacity, to be sure. Like she certainly, when the relationship ended, she had a much higher opinion of herself than when we began.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it's those fears, those blocks, and whoever did a thing before, the person in front of you isn't that person.
Mm.
Is the globalized belief part of that. But if you don't feel like you're worthy of receiving, it's going to be very difficult for somebody to love you.
Absolutely. I think as well, you just said about the fact that when you did part ways, she felt better about herself than she did before, which is the definition of love. Love makes you feel better. It doesn't deplete you. It doesn't take from
Right.
you. And we need to be clear on what love actually is, because I think often we've been shown love that has been, well, we've all experienced transactional love with strings, with conditions. And it's only when we can do the work on ourselves and realize our self-worth that we can even identify and what that is. Actually, I'm worth more than this. Being around you is depleting me, or being around you makes me feel
Right.
better. One is love, one is love dressed up as
Something else.
something else.
Or
Yeah,
something else dressed
how
up
to
as love, right?
politely, yeah,
Right.
exactly. So but there are so many blocks to receiving love. As you've said, we may not feel worthy. We may not feel we may feel that if we receive love, it means that we're incapable in some way. So there's that kind of incapability problem. That's a block. We may feel that love, and we may not trust the giver's motivation, and fear consequences
Sure.
around rejection and abandonment. And obviously we may fear losing love. So it is so complex, all of these feelings that we may not even understand, identify, unless we have done so much unpacking ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's totally possible, and it is, our life force is our sexuality, our creativity. If we put a block on any of that, we put a massive block on our life, which is
Yeah. We're
such a shame.
we're essentially not fully alive. Um,
Absolutely.
and and I agree with you. Sexuality and creativity are, they're both expressions of life force.
Yeah.
Um, and I've long associated sex drive with simply life force. I mean, like just the desire to express yourself that way in the appropriate context, with you know, um, or by yourself. Uh,
Well, yeah. Yeah.
I think there's also, there's something about societal norms that go along here too,
Yeah.
and it's certainly changing because the more people tell the truth about what they desire. I remember I was talking to somebody I think I've known him for 25 years. And he called himself homo. He was married, but he called himself homoerotic, and apparently he had a foot fetish, and he had always been so ashamed of that. He goes, Jason, you can find anything on the internet. So he finally he got okay with it because he searched some porn site for foot stuff, and he
Mm-hmm.
found like 100,000 videos, and so he suddenly didn't feel like he was some weirdo, but
Yeah.
obviously there's a bunch of other people out there. And I think the more we tell the truth about our desires, the more uh, the more other people tell the truth about their desires, the more people have uh, a self acceptance that, oh, I'm not the only one that has that experience. But I think that's true of anything, especially in the sexual realm. But these societal norms, and a lot of them are just fake. You know, I remember went to a Super Bowl party at a very Christian. It was a very large gathering, and there was lots of interconnecting families there. And a friend of mine said, "Hey, by the way, the friend and client who had invited me to it, because it was a for me it was a business a potential networking opportunity." She said, "By the way, that couple I told, like she was like there was some behind the scenes swinging going on. They're very Christian, but nobody. So there's this like pocket of people, and she's like, you can't mention any of that. All these people are lying about it to everybody." And I just thought it was so extraordinary that there's this subsect in the family and extended. I mean, the family wasn't but it was like the sister was dating the ex-husband of, and then they would go to sex parties and all this stuff, and it was like, why don't they just tell the truth?
Mm.
And in some places it can have a negative impact on business or on family, and you have to be cautious about that. But in the context of a relationship with somebody who you want to express and have your desires fulfilled, it becomes critical. I mean, why wait a year in to say, well, I really like this thing sexually to your partner? It just seems like a lot of like angst, and I understand the fear of being judged, but a lot of times I've had the experience of people going, "Oh, me too." Like they're like, "Oh, thank God, you like that thing too."
You like feet too?
Um,
Yeah.
no, no, no,
No,
no, no. I mean, I
I'm
don't know.
joking.
I actually
Yeah, yeah.
I don't understand that one. They're like
Mm.
elbows to me. It's like I don't know that. You know, but there's a bunch of things though. Like I think people should have the experiences they want to have. A lot of things for me though, I'm like, yeah, it's asexual to me. Feet's one of them.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm glad he found his community.
Mm. Absolutely. But it's so important that we share this stuff, so if we're working in groups and we can share,
Yeah.
even this morning I was working for a corporate company in a group, and just invited them to share if they felt comfortable doing. All of them did, and then others said, "Oh, me too, I'm going through that at the moment too." And it's just this exposing, it's that willing and drop the mask and say, actually, this is a thing. We
Yeah.
find out that we're not alone at all. So, that's why I love these conversations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but absolutely owning our desires. I mean, I think all of this comes back to self-compassion, self-worth, self-love, self-acceptance, an ability to be intimate with ourselves. We have to be able to be intimate with ourselves in order to truly be intimate with someone else.
Yes. Yes.
I
Yeah.
believe. I mean, I can't see any other way.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
So, yeah, and we have to start somewhere. Whatever level we're at, we can begin to become more intimate with ourselves, to accept ourselves more, to see ourselves through the eyes of compassion, and to know that pleasure is a wonderful thing. That's why that's why we're here,
Yeah.
to enjoy life and to experience pleasure and to experience all of the feelings and emotions that we have. So to shut those down just blocks any form of
Yeah.
intimacy.
I think there's also a pitfall and this has just been on my mind lately. It's tangentially relevant, but I
Hmm.
think there's this mythology. Well, I just think it's not true. But there's this myth that because like if you're going to be spiritual, you're supposed to be cut off from like the diaphragm down or something. Or you're not, you're just not supposed to be fully alive. And I don't think that's true. I think suppression of life force leads to it coming out in interesting ways, like the Catholic Church. It's like you suppress that life force, it's going to squirt out in perverted ways. And when I say perverted, I'm talking about like the way it is shown up in the Catholic Church. There's plenty of things I like that people would call perverted, but I mean like a thing that we can universally agree is not okay.
Yeah.
And the there's this, you sent me this. Can I read this comment that you sent me?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Please
All
do.
right, because I'd like to dig into it.
Mm.
So this is a comment from a group that you're running, right?
Yeah. So can I just explain? So
Yeah.
So we're working with the sacral chakra, our sensuality, pleasure, sexuality, and one of the ladies decided to herself to dress sexy way for herself. So she would, her plan was, I'm gonna wear really sexy clothes and go to bed. She's on her own, but she's going to do that for herself. And then, as she started to do that, this comment came up. So I forwarded the comment, obviously not with her name. I wouldn't divulge who.
Yeah, it's anonymous.
Yeah. But yeah, feel free to share the comment.
Thank you. Okay, so she writes, I've been struggling with wearing sexy clothes. I get thoughts that stop me from doing it. I've never liked attention on me, and I feel dressing like that, I'll be the gossip. I love my body, but at the same time, I don't understand the link between being confident and sexy at the same time. So, I think there's a few things there. I'll never forget, I was in the financial district one time, and I saw a woman in a pink business suit, a skirt business suit, with very, very pronounced fishnet stockings on. And this is, at lunch, and she came out of one of them, and I thought, good for her, and I think the best, and I've had women ask me, what do you want me to wear? And I say, wear whatever you feel sexiest in, like whatever you feel. Now I have preferences and types of dresses I like and stuff, but what's more important to me is that she feels sexy. So I think it is important for women to dress sexy for themselves because it makes them feel, sexy, powerful. I'm having I'd love to know what the thoughts are that stop her from doing it, and it could be that what she follows with are those thoughts. And I think part of it is having some insight of somebody. If she becomes the gossip, so what? It's part envy, part jealousy, part, who cares? People are going to talk about you. They're probably already talking about you. And I just wouldn't worry about that. That's a part of just being fully embodied. Also, women who feel sexy in their body have a lot of power. I mean, there's so much power there. And the more comfortable she is in her body, the more that translates. And attuned men can feel that. A woman who's fully in her body, fully empowered by her sexuality, has high self-esteem, is completely comfortable with her desires. That's a turn on for me at least. And it sort of transcends type or other preferences, but that embodied self-acceptance is very, very powerful. The part that confused me about this comment is says, I don't understand the link between being confident and sexy at the same time. Can you say, do you know what she means by that?
I think maybe she's trying to feel more confident about herself and is struggling to see how the two relate. But really, from what you're saying there, that just allowing the life force to flow through us is our confidence. That is what people feel. What you're talking about is an energy, isn't it? That's what comes across, because the life force is flowing. If a woman's turned on by life, by her life, everyone can feel that. And a lot of people are threatened by that. If you're not feeling turned on by life and you see someone owning it and walking past you in fishnets and and loving life, that could really
Yeah.
create a lot of jealousy.
Yeah.
And also, I think it's important for us as women to really be honest about what do we feel when we look at another woman. If we see a woman in her power, owning whatever she's wearing, whatever length skirt, whatever cleavage, whatever she's wearing, if she's feeling great, what are our judgments on her? Because ultimately that's how we're judging ourselves. So if I don't want to be the gossip, well, then that must mean that I'm looking at other women in the same way, because I've been taught that probably, that to dress, to have your cleavage showing means you're a slut or whatever.
Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not at all. Absolutely. Our bodies are wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never understood the, I remember I think I was in high school, and somebody, made a comment about a slut, and I said, "Oh, you mean she's using her body for pleasure like men have been for centuries? I don't see how that's a problem." For me, slut's always been sort of a term of endearment, but I don't want to get sidetracked there.
I love it. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so anyway, back to this.
Yeah.
There's a piece that you mentioned a while back that I wanted to circle back to, but I think there's a few things. It could be that it's projection, like that's how she would judge somebody else. It could be that she's been judged that way in the past. It could be she's completely making it up. It could be she wouldn't be the gossip. It could be, but I also think what you just said about how, some people, like, whether it's coming from jealousy, and, as women, you need to be cautious about where that is coming from. It could be envy, which is, different than jealousy. But the same thing happens with personal development. I mean, it's widely, like, there's a lot of people who, as you develop yourself, or as you ascend in life in lots of areas, whether it's financially or whether it's, interpersonally, or whether it's your own personal development, people will, like, out of their own fear of taking on their life, and it could show up as easily as somebody's trying to, and this doesn't happen as much anymore, but somebody's trying to get in shape, and or they don't want to drink, and then it's like, well, and there's a person that drinks every day. They might lower, like, instead of going, "Hey, good for you," they try to press you into staying at the same level because it's scary for them in terms of taking on their own life. They feel confronted by it. Yeah. It's a smaller segment, but it's present. And so it can also be just that, like, they might say something about the woman because they're, they don't have the courage to dress that way. And so rather than go, "Wow, I would be scared to dress that way because I'd be afraid of how people would judge me," the audience, and I don't think she's doing this, but the people she fears, but she also could just be making it up. But at the end of the day, like, self-acceptance, who cares? Who cares?
Who cares? Well, we have to break down the societal stories. But if I saw her walking past owning it, I would be like, "Yes, sister," I want to see her expressing herself in whatever way, because we need to be expressing our uniqueness and finding ways that make us feel good. So, I mean, I'm happy to share the kind of things that I do that that on a regular basis that I think help me to express myself or feel more comfortable in myself. And things like, so I paint abstract, which is completely about getting messy, letting go of control, don't know where it's going to go, just expressing and moving beyond the fear of it looking messy or failure and all of that. That's been really helpful to me. And actually, that's something I'm going to be offering to people soon, workshops on knowing yourself more through self-creative expression, belly dancing, so moving my body in a sensual way, because that frees up that just lets go of me, and it's fun. It's flowy, and I love that.
Mm.
I sing in a choir, and singing frees up my voice, and that has been another, and I sang a solo, and that's kind of moved me through my fear of showing up, fully.
Mm.
And then really simple things like spending time indulging my senses. I think, sensuality is not about, well, it's not just about sexuality, but sensuality is all of the things that give us pleasure. So, things like in the morning, I make time for my shower. I choose shower gels and fragrances that I love, that bring me pleasure, and I indulge in that, and taking time to massage my body, my skincare routine and things like that, just because I enjoy the smells and the touch and that time for
Yeah.
myself,
Yeah.
which it's a ritual. It seems very, I don't know, could even be deemed as shallow, but it's not. It's self-care, it's self-love. I wear bold coloured clothes that have a deep hue. All of my clothes have a pure, deep hue to them, because it reflects my energy. It gives me energy. The depth and the purity are a reflection of me, and that's what I feel good in. So I
Sure.
dress that way because it feels good for me. Things like in the morning, I'll eat fresh fruits because I love the taste of fresh fruits, and then I'll cook myself a breakfast. So I take that time to start my day feeling good about myself and nourishing myself and nurturing myself. So they're just some really simple examples of ritual and self-care and self-love and self-worth.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there are so many
Yeah.
things that we can do.
And also how we do them. You mentioned a skincare routine. I think when one is lotioning themselves or putting
Mm,
what raw coconut oil or whatever they like, it's
yeah,
to actually do it mindfully,
yeah,
so that the relationship, not just slapping it on and
yeah.
but to actually caress themselves slightly, so that there is an element of relationship, a mindful relationship with their body, and that can go pretty far.
Well,
You
it
know.
can. Yeah,
And eating more mindfully,
yeah,
slower,
yeah,
really tasting your food,
yeah.
slowing down to do that. And I think that can be a small step forward to acknowledging what you actually desire. Like
Mm,
slowing down. What do you want right now? What do you want? Whether it's something in a relationship or something in the bedroom or something, what actually drop in enough, slow down enough to know what you want and what you desire in the moment.
mm, yeah.
And then the self acceptance piece, not saying, oh, well, I can't like that because somebody or some community says I shouldn't,
Mm,
but saying, well, that is what I want. And then being, I'm going to say the word courageous, because for a lot of people it is. Eventually, it's not courageous because there's nothing to fear. With enough self acceptance, the fear of what other people, how they'll judge you, goes away. You still want to be effective, so you have to have a mind, be mindful about your results in certain contexts, certainly professionally, but uh, but not caring about what people. So you end up spending a lot less time in. Uh, God, there's a word in there's this word that I can't remember what it is. I just found out about it a few days ago. There's the most southern people on the globe. They live in the cone, I guess they call it, of South America. They have a word for when two people are looking at each other, and that tension when nobody's saying the thing that should be said or doing the thing that should be doing. It's like that. And I think the way most people relate to it is like that first kiss, or that first It's like both people are. There's actually a word for it in this Aboriginal culture,
Mm.
which uh, is anyway. I saved it somewhere.
Mm.
I'll post it. But
Yeah.
you spend some people spend that kind of like there's a thing they both want, but they don't express it
Mm.
for months or even years.
Mm.
And if you get comfortable enough with your own desires, your own preferences, I mean, hey, this is what I want because this is what I want. This is the kind of partner I want because this is the kind of partner I want, not because somebody told you or filtered out or watered down. Then you save yourself a lot of frustration, heartache, and a lot of time.
Mm. Yeah,
And you can
definitely.
have anything you want. You can have any kind of relationship you want, any kind of sex you want. You just have to be upfront about it and find the appropriate partner.
Mm, absolutely. I think the importance of transparency, um, and
Hmm.
also owning what we're giving and getting, and really owning that. So not being afraid to say if we're um, maybe worried about, oh, I don't know if I trust why I'm being given this, to own to ask that person, what are you getting out of giving me that, and allowing them to take ownership for that too. So
Sure.
so for example, with this conversation, I will gladly own transparently the fact that yes, I want to bring bring comfort and ways forward to the women that I'm working with, or anyone that sees this, and hopefully inspire others. But also, it's broadening for me, to have these conversations. It helps me to expand, um, and that's what I'm getting out of it. I love to share. I love to have these conversations, but it's helping me too, you know, and I'm
Yeah.
happy to own that.
Yeah. Good.
Hmm.
Hmm. By the way, if you do ask somebody what they're getting out of it, and they simply look confused, like if it's a gift it's probably because they just love you and they.
But yeah, but then that's what they're getting. That they're
If they
enjoying.
get defensive, they
Yeah.
may you may have reasons for suspicions, but
Yeah. 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 But I think, to break
um,
down those walls, to invite transparency
yeah,
is a healthy thing. Um,
yeah, it's one of the when I work with people and part of the I mean you've seen this the agreements for healthy relating part of the book I'm writing on relationships the it starts off with telling the truth and hearing the truth and valuing truth over comfort and sometimes that's your own comfort and sometimes it's over your perceived comfort of the other person. Like, well, I'm going to share this with them. It might make them uncomfortable, but we have an agreement that we value truth over comfort. And without that foundation, which can include transparency, obviously, or encourages transparency, and telling the truth and hearing the truth are two different capacities.
mm,
Um, I think it's critical. Um, and you have to have somebody who's developed. I mean, we're talking about the high level relating. You have to have somebody who's developed enough and to be okay with looking at aspects of themselves that may not be. It could be that they didn't think they wanted something out of it, but they realize that they do, and they have to be. Gosh, you're right. There was something. There was a slightly tangible residue to like me wanting to do this thing for you. There was an expectation that followed. I didn't realize that, and that's probably what her as a woman was feeling. I think it's okay to, but also to be honest about it. I was with it's about 2.5 years into a relationship one time, and I noticed a very strange pattern. If we went away for the week, so we couldn't keep our hands off each other. We were having sex twice a day. We lived very close together. But if we went away for the weekend, we never had sex. Like some weird fight would come up, and I had never really, and so at some point we actually went away for the. I rented a hotel suite in the town we lived in, right? And we go out to dinner. We're both dressed up, and and she said something like, "Is there some sort of expectation for sex?" Now, bear in mind, we had sex all the time, twice a day. If like we had to put restrictions on when we could see each other because we'd end up having sex. And I said, "Yeah, of course there is. Why in the hell would you think I would rent a hotel suite for the weekend? Handle childcare to what? Play Scrabble? And it sort of burned. And I just ended up not. I was like, look, I'm just not gonna. We're not going away for the weekend anymore because, after 2.5 years of doing this, it's about a half dozen, and she just had some thing that she had to burn through about it. It's like, of course, and so it was a strange, but I was like, yeah, of course I do. Why else would I spend the time, logistics, the money, of course, I'm trying to create an experience for us that's, anyway.
Mm.
Duh. And
Surprise, surprise.
why is that a bad thing? Anyway. Well, this has been a lovely conversation. We should let's
Yes.
as we promised at the beginning. Why don't we both talk about?
Mm.
So, how do people reach you? How do you work with people like that?
Mm. Well, you can reach me via Facebook on Messenger. You can, that's probably the best way actually to contact me through Facebook if you're not local to me. I do work one-to-one with clients, but that tends to be more in person, but I can work remotely with you. But most of my remote work is group work. So I do a lot of meditation groups and sacred circle work, mainly with women, although I really would love to be working with men too. As you know, I have a men's group that I began at the beginning of the year, and that's something that I really want to nourish the group and find a way for men to open up more, because it is needed. But yeah, I have various workshops, creative stuff coming up. So if you feel called to work with me or just find out what I do, then just reach out, drop me a message, and we can have a conversation around that. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can of course reach me here on Facebook, and my primary website is evolutionarycompanies.com, and then there's also evolutionarygentleman.com. But if you're interested in working with me one-on-one, go ahead and message me, and there's a several step process. We could just have a conversation to see if it makes sense for us to work together or not, and we'll go from there based on what it is that you're looking to resolve or experience in your life, and how you want to evolve.
Mm. And self-love and self-compassion is the way forward.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Thank you, Joe. It's been
Thank
a
you so
pleasure as
much.
always.
Yes,
Be
thank
sweet to
you.
yourself.
You too. You take care.